Hi everyone, I'm Kobayashi. Have you ever thought about this? Why do some societies become more and more open and prosperous, while others gradually become closed and afraid of questions? History shows us that civilization and ignorance rarely coexist for long. And after living across different countries and cultures, I started noticing a pattern. In a society, rational and independent voices gradually grow quiet, while another kind of voice becomes louder, a voice that values obedience and exclusion over diversity. So the people who suffer the most are often the ones who have already seen a larger world, yet must continue living every day inside a narrow narrative, sometimes even inside illusions. And that feeling feels less like disagreement and more like slow psychological suffocation. In fact, the past 100 years history has already given us many natural experiments. Take East Germany and West Germany, for example. Same people, same language, and same culture. Yet after 40 years, West Germany became one of the most developed countries in the world. So when the Berlin Wall finally fell, many East Germans walked into Western supermarkets for the first time. Some of them stood silently in front of the shelves, overwhelmed, even not knowing what to choose, because everything felt unbelievable to them. Now consider another example, South Korea and North Korea. About 70 years ago, their starting points were almost the same. And today, South Korea's GDP per capita exceeds $30,000, while North Korea's remains below $2,000. But the most important difference is one became an open, globally connected society and welcoming travelers from all over the world, and the other remains largely isolated, where even clothing styles and public expression appear strikingly uniform. So civilization, it turns out, never happens naturally. It requires systems, but more importantly, it requires a soil of values it can grow in. Over the years, I've often met people from some places where independent thinking is not encouraged. And some of them even proudly describe themselves as positive thinkers. I remember once we were discussing a simple question: why many countries in the world allow media and citizens to openly criticize their governments? He quickly responded before I making any comments. He said, no, you are definitely wrong. That just means the country is chaotic and poorly managed. And that's why people are allowed to say anything. So I asked him, what if the policies genuinely have big problems? And he answered very firmly, no, that's impossible. Even if there are some small problems, you shouldn't talk about them publicly. At that moment, I realized we were no longer debating opinions. We were actually living in different versions of reality. But when this way of thinking becomes dominant in a society, can you imagine what would happen? So many people ask, can a society like this ever change? Well, history tells us that it can. In 1987, South Korea experienced the June democratic movement. Students and citizens took to the streets demanding reform. What followed was not immediate prosperity, no, but something more fundamental. People got the ability to speak differently. And 30 years later, South Korea emerged as a global cultural and economic powerhouse. And Taiwan offers another example. After nearly 4 decades of martial law, restrictions were lifted in 1987. Media opened, political competition emerged, and diverse values gradually took root. Within just 2 or 3 generations, the social atmosphere transformed completely. Across Eastern Europe in 1989, movements such as Poland's Solitary Movement and Czechoslovakia's revolution reshaped the entire society. And in less than a decade, many transitioned toward market economies and later joined the European Union. History tells us repeatedly the direction of a society can change within a single generation. So over time, I've come to believe that civilization cannot save everyone, and awakening never happens all at once. But history consistently tells us that real change is usually driven by a small minority. Those willing to think, to look beyond boundaries, and those willing to choose and act. And most of the time, yes, they are lonely, misunderstood, even dismissed. Yet every turning point in history begins the same way, with a small number of people choosing to wake up.